Hey guys, welcome back to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host Alan Bishop, the channel where I do my best to give correct distilling information in a 10-minute time frame, which sometimes gets rushed. But that being said, today I got a very nice email that I really appreciated. And there wasn't really a question in here, but I'm going to turn it into a question. So this is from Wayne Herbert, who wrote to me at bishopshomegrown@gmail.com. I just wanted to let you know that I'm really enjoying your videos. You have great content, you do a great job at answering people's questions. I'm currently growing some Cherokee White Eagle corn for seed next year. After playing with several different types of corn, I can really tell a difference between them and want to use corn that nobody else is using. I've been distilling for about 10 years and there's still so much to learn. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and keep up the good work. Wayne Herbert. Wayne, I really appreciate that email greatly. It makes me feel good to know that what I'm doing actually helps people and people are paying attention to it. And with that being said, you mentioned the corn, and one of the things I've always been big on distillers talk in particular is wanting to hear from plant breeders. So my background is actually in plant breeding. Part of my background is in my 20s, and corn was always my passion. So to me, and I'm sure this is a very American way of looking at corn, but corn is grain on a handle. It's easy to grow, it's easy to harvest, it's easy to store, it's easy to clean, it's easy to work with. It's got great starch for conversion into alcohol. It's wonderful for feed, and it's super, super diverse. So one of the things I wanted to mention on here, I think I've talked about corn varieties on here in the past. I'm almost positive I have. But I did want to encourage anybody out there who has any amount of property whatsoever, if you're doing any home distilling, even if you just have a home garden, find a corn that interests you that's adapted to your local place, your local region. See if it has any history there locally, and plant some of it, right? If you're just doing small batches, especially if it's sugar shine or something like that, you don't need a whole lot of corn anyways. So get you some seed for next year and get it in the ground next year and grow it. Experience growing that corn, watching it grow, protecting it, harvest it, cleaning it. Take it somewhere and get it ground if you ain't got a grinder, or buy a little hand grinder, one way or the other. But that's one thing I always encourage even commercial distilleries. If you're in the United States, there is nowhere that you couldn't grow at least some amount of corn. Even in Alaska, you may need a little hoop tunnel or something like that, but there are little short, 60-day corns and things like that. There's even some 58-day corns out there. Now, they're hard to find seed for. You may have to grow them for a year or two and get seed off of them and replant them to get them up and going. But, there's no reason why every distillery in the United States shouldn't have their own corn variety. And the other thing I wanted to encourage you guys to look into if you're not familiar with it, because again, distilling is agrarian in nature, very much so. So, plant breeding, public domain plant breeding is something that this country has a long, proud history of. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of universities doing public domain plant breeding. But interestingly enough, most of the old-fashioned public domain plant breeding was done by farmers. Just on their own farms, or even in their own gardens. That's where the entire heirloom seed movement came from. Every heirloom started off as a hybrid at one point in time, believe it or not, that was then saved and then fixed to its current state to whatever degree that you want it fixed to that current state. So I want to check in with you, and I want you guys to check out a couple of people out there that are kind of interesting. So the first gentleman is Joseph Lofthouse, a very good friend of mine. He's a plant breeder out in Utah who's done some really interesting things in his particular microclimate, including playing around with corns and landraces and things of that nature. And I'm going to get to the landrace idea here in a minute. And then also, you guys may want to check out, in particular, Alan Mushroom Capuler. So he was the founder of Peace Seeds. He was also a founder of, I believe, Seeds of Change back in the day. And he's devoted his entire life to public domain plant breeding, mostly for nutrition more than anything else, obviously not for alcohol. And interestingly enough, very few of my plant breeding friends are also involved in alcohol production. There's kind of maybe a small amount of disconnect there, right? That some of the plant breeders don't realize that their work may be worth a little bit more to distillers than it is at the farmer's market or even in the seed trade. So I would love to see those kind of camps come together, right? Especially if it's home distillers and home farmers, and more so if some of those home farmers become home distillers. It makes a lot of sense, especially in the world where we're living in, with the uncertainty of the economic times and the food chain and all that sort of thing. So I want to encourage you guys to really look into the seed thing and see what you can grow some of your own stuff if you possibly can, and use it to make liquor sometimes, right? Now, don't obviously delve into your food reserves to do that, but whatever extra you got, you can do something cool with. The other thing I would say is that one of the really good ways to tell if a corn is going to make a good liquor, whether it's a sugar shine or a true all grain whiskey, is make either some grits or some cornbread out of it. It smells good and it tastes good as grits or cornbread. For me, particularly grits are the easy way to tell, right? Because it's almost a mash itself, anyways. If it tastes good there and it's got a good texture to it and a good aroma to it, it's probably going to make really good whiskey if you give it a chance. So I mentioned the Landrace thing, and I mentioned every distiller having their own variety. And what I mean by that is, as opposed to being single-sided and looking at open pollinated heirloom seeds, or a variety of open pollinated heirloom seed, and being stuck on, well, this is what was used in 1830 or 1850 or 1940, whatever. Bear in mind that all of those varieties were adapted to a particular bioregion, and they may or may not be adapted to your bioregion. And even if they are adapted to your bioregion, they have been inbred year over year over year. And there is a thing called inbreeding depression. You have to introduce genetic diversity in order to reverse inbreeding depression, which causes a lot of problems. Corn is the easiest crop out there to work with because you don't have to do a whole lot to it to get what you want out of it. So what I would suggest is breed your own corn variety. It's the easiest thing you can possibly breed. And all you got to do is find 4 or 5 varieties maybe that you're interested in, that you think are cool and have great culinary qualities to them or could potentially make really good whiskey. And you take those varieties and you figure out what the days to maturity of them are, and you either get corns that are all in the same line of days to maturity, which is the easiest way to do it, plant them, mix the seeds all together, plant them together and let them cross back and forth, and then just select for what you like. What plants do the best, what plants produce the best colors, what plants have the best aroma, have the best taste, what seeds that you want to take out of that. Or you find ones with different days of maturity and you stagger plant them so that they're able to cross back and forth. Either way, what you've done is you've created a very genetically diverse seed pool that you can then go through year after year and replant and select for what you like until you get a variety that presents the traits that you like. And that can all be done sensory-wise. It can all be done by look, by agrarian habits, how horticulturally they hold up. Do they lodge out of the ground? Do they stand straight? Are they able to resist the raccoons pulling them to the ground and stealing the ears off of them? Do they have tight shucks that keep the worms out of them? All those things, right? And you find what you like out of that and you grow it and you keep growing it. This is how heirlooms are created. This is how heirlooms were always created, right? And so now you are a plant breeder on top of being a distiller. And the other cool thing is you're able to develop a corn that is specifically your corn variety that nobody else has to have unless you share it with them, right? And it makes your style of corn whiskey. And even if it's the most basic sugar shine, 1 pound of grain, 1 pound of sugar, 1 to 1 gallon of water, it's yours. And there's a variable there that can never be replicated by somebody that has the same still or is on the same aquifer or uses the same yeast or any of those things. That's where the fun of distilling is at for somebody like me. And again, I'm trying to encourage people as much as possible to dive as deep into the art of distilling as what you possibly can and take things to the next level for yourselves and for the people who enjoy your liquor. So that's what we got today. If you guys ever have any questions, bishopshomegrown@gmail.com, any of my social media, or in the YouTube comments. I love y'all. Have a good evening.